I have never had a conversation with a sales leader who doesn't also want brand awareness. They want demand, they want leads, but they also want, when they pick up the phone, for somebody to say, oh yes, I know who you are. I saw this or I read this. So I think that investment in brand is key. And it kind of goes along with this, attribution myth of everything you do has to be measured because every dollar you spend has to be able to be trackable.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. All right, here we go. Okay, I have hit the button. This adventure is about to start. I'm so excited. I feel honored. I feel a little nervous, a little excited because our guest today is an absolute badass. She is a marketing leader, thought leader, industry expert, author, speaker, literally one of the 50 CMOs to watch. Pavilion is saying, keep your eyes on this person. Why? She has this all-star cast of companies she's worked at: Salesforce, Dropbox, Bitly, Udemy, Wrike, all the places you can imagine. Like, those would be the right places to work and run marketing teams. And she's run gigantic marketing teams and grown companies from 100 million to 450 million in different roles. Decades, should I even say, quarter of a century of experience. Chief Marketing Officer at Wrike, Christine Royston, welcome to the show.
Thank you. The quarter century thing is a little scary.
I know, right? It's like, do we want the century? I don't know. But I'm excited to have you here and to learn from you today. And I'm going to pass you this thing. It's heavy, but you are an absolute savage of a marketer. So here you go. Okay, go ahead. Take Thor's hammer. Go ahead. Reach out, grab. You want to grab it? There you go. You got it? Okay. All right, Christine, take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Sure. So the myth is attribution is the most important element of building a pipeline plan. I think over-indexing on attribution can really misguide your marketing investments. Takes so many teams spending so much time across marketing, operations, sales, getting alignment, both setting and measuring all the way into minute details. I think it's a waste of time.
Gosh, man, I feel like marketing used to be making things pretty. We got in trouble for that. And then now marketing seems to be trying to attribute things that you just can't even attribute sometimes. Why are we in this mode? What's happened? How do we get here?
I think it is a bit of, trying to prove out the value of marketing, the ROI of marketing. I think, in general, as a marketing leader, you want to be able to be seen as having a breadth of knowledge and expertise, both on the brand as well as on the demand side, really understanding the business and the go-to-market model. I think there's also, we're all seeing this today. There is a focus on making sure you're being thoughtful with every dollar you spend. It is not, growth at all costs and we'll worry about the ROI later. It is, what is the plan? How do you make sure every dollar you spend is going to drive growth for the company? And I think, with that, we've probably swung too far into trying to measure every single little thing. And then making decisions based off of that. And there's no perfect attribution. You're always going to miss the influence of something. You're going to overvalue something, undervalue certain touch points. So I think that it is something that spending so much time on it is just not a great way to leverage your hours in the day.
Yeah, so much time wasted. I definitely see that barn door swinging. Oh no, it's going too far in the other direction. Tell me about what happens. What do you see happen when companies do over-index in attribution and they obsess so much in there? What ends up happening?
So, I think one issue is you find people making decisions purely to fit the outcome that the attribution is optimized for. So instead of thinking about that full customer journey, you might focus on, well, what is it that I can measure in the customer
Mm,
journey? Or if you're more heavily weighted towards last touch, well, what are all the bottom of funnel last touch things that I can do? Or you want to gate everything because you want to capture that name, that activity, so you can drop it into your attribution model. So I think that's one, and more in terms of where marketers are maybe spending their time. I think there's also, an issue, and we all know this happens. There's finger pointing across teams where, you can say this might happen inside the marketing team where a team says, well, this channel, this program isn't delivering the pipeline, it's not delivering the results. If you give me that budget, I can, take it and deliver results. But I think, most importantly, it causes finger pointing across functions. If you
mm,
think about marketing and sales alignment, you want to be seen as partners. When it comes down to it, you should look at pipeline as a team. You should look at the business as a team and say, we have an overall business target to hit. We need to create pipeline. We have to do activities to create that pipeline. But what is it that we're trying to drive as a team? And if the business isn't hitting targets, what can any of us do to fix that? How do we kind of make trade-offs across teams and say, hey, if this program isn't working, what can I do to help that? Or if this team isn't delivering the pipeline that we thought we would be delivering, well, what could this team do to kind of make up for it or provide more support so that they can create pipeline? So I think it ends up causing collaboration issues. It ends up causing decision making issues because you're just trying to fit the targets. The best relationships I've had with stakeholders have been when we say we know the business goal, we know generally what the funnel looks like to get there. Attribution is the guiding light. What do we think every team is going to deliver? But then we have regular touch points, and it's less about the source in those meetings, and it's more about the business and what can we all do to, shift things if we're not performing at the levels or in the places that we expect.
the idea of it being a guiding light as opposed to being the end all be all, sounds right. How do you make it a guiding light and not go over the edge and just make it the thing that you obsess over?
Yeah. So one of the things that I make sure we do is we do talk about the numbers. We do take a look and say, we thought we would see revenue coming from this channel, but it's not coming from that channel. Yes, we're going to dive into the details and understand what's happening. But do we have a faster fix? What else could we do as a team? Another thing that I think you can do is making sure you're thinking about the customer journey and the customer experience. So, if you take that step back and say, what happens when someone comes to my website, comes to this event, has an engagement with us in a digital experience or in person? What is that customer experience? Because in the end, that's what drives revenue is building those relationships and giving people a good experience, what they're looking for. They're looking for information. Let's not make it difficult for them to find information. We know customers do a lot of research ahead of time before they ever talk to us, ever want to fill out a form. They're trying to understand the market, how vendors can solve solutions for them. So I think thinking about that customer experience is really important.
That makes total sense because I could see that really helping you avoid do the gating everything and like, okay, this will help us with that weird stat we're tracking, but is this going to be a pleasant experience for our customers? No, it's going to be miserable, terrible. Hey, they're going to get all these automated text messages after getting one PDF. Does that sound like a good idea? Not really.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. It's almost like that same idea of like, what's in it for me before hitting send on that email, before, creating a process that, adds friction, but gives
Mhm.
you a metric, Well, man. Um, so they're like guiding lights in the custom. What are the kind of things you think about when you see a customer journey or when you try to make sure it's as smooth as possible or as pleasant as possible? Because at the end of the day, you do want to help them and get them to buy, but at the same time, you don't want to bombard them and beat them over the head.
Right. So, I think there's a lot you can do with customer journey mapping and sort of taking a look at on your website, where is it that people are spending a lot of time? Where are they moving across pages? Are you making it difficult for people to sort of find information in the order that they're looking for?
Yeah.
I think absolutely talking to customers as well. So both people who have become customers and really learning, how did you hear about us? What was the experience like, and finding out information? What was the experience like engaging with our teams, whether it was, you attended a webinar or you talked to a salesperson. And then I think there's also value in taking a look at that prospect experience before people even, become customers. How could you talk to people about, hey, what information would be valuable? If you're in the market for this, like, how are you going about researching? What are the most important ways you capture information you learn in terms of what's available in the market? So I think actually talking to humans is also key.
Something about talking to humans and not with a survey in between you, right? Like,
Right, right.
I had a survey just a couple days ago, and it was a product I purchased, and I was pleased with it. But the survey said, what was the primary reason that you chose this? And there's 4 options, and none of them were the reason that I chose that, and there was no other, right? There was no other. So I thought, man, that survey's dead on arrival. Like that thing, it's gonna give you some crazy data that you're gonna make. To your point, you're gonna make some weird decisions based
Mhm.
on this data that is not really that accurate anymore. It's wild. It said it could just talk to me, and I would have told them a billion things.
Exactly, exactly.
How do you I mean, I feel like in the past, just like with the over-indexing on attribution, we also we wanted to, like, normalize data to be able to process it, but then at the same time, it's that classic, "How did you find us?" Or, "What was the primary reason you purchased this?" And that drop down, it can be nice to normalize data, but at the same time now, we might miss out on the magic of the things that aren't trackable. How do you think about the untrackable things?
Yes. And it's definitely something that is becoming, sort of, I'd say, a bigger share of engagement,
Right.
as we see it in all industries now. If you think about, AI search, generative AI engines, all of this zero click research. So those engines are finding the most useful information, putting it in front of people. Hopefully they can associate your brand with that, or there is a link that they can eventually use to get to you. Um, but I think that is something that we're definitely seeing impacting everything we do. I think also, from a data privacy perspective, as you think about, certain countries, certain regions, even consumer preferences. I think every website I go to now has a pop up that's asking me my preferences, and well, of course, no, I don't. I don't want you to track what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm going to take the time to opt out of that. And so I think those things are sort of showing up and saying, all right, I'm not going to have as much data as I would like. Maybe less data than I've had in the past. It's an interesting mix because I feel like there's so much new technology out there that's trying to give you more data points, but at the same time, you have these other trends that are reducing the data points available to you. And so I think that is something that, you have to take that step back and say, what is great marketing? What's a great experience? How do I take some of these real life conversations that I've had to make changes to my website, make changes to the way the sales teams are engaging? Think about new types of programs or spending more time on different programs to try to build that customer relationship.
The zero click research is a fascinating challenge, I think, of like our generation, of this
Mhm.
generation of marketing that, maybe in the past it was how do you get Google to be your friend and not, to rank you higher. But in this case, it's like we can't even necessarily track it. Or I mean, you can ask ChatGPT, hey, what do you think? And I just a couple days ago, I did the same thing. I was asking, "Hey, who do you recommend in this?" He goes, "Well, there's this, and this. Here's 3 firms that you should check out, and they specialize in the." Okay, all right, and and none of them asked me when I reached out to them, but it'd probably be worth asking. did you find out about us from AI, you know? Just to find out, but, like, are you doing anything on your end to track that, or do you just acknowledge that it exists? Like, how deep do you take that?
So, we've been diving in a lot on AI impact in terms of search,
Yeah.
and there are a ton of tools out there that are popping up to help you understand, how are you showing up, where are you showing up, what pages are showing up, and so I think that's definitely something we want to invest more time in is, how do we understand where we're providing content and answers to questions that are being asked in chat GPT or in perplexity. Um, so that, ultimately, in the end, search has always been about best content wins. Now, early on, there were tri- uh, tricks you could do to kind of do some things to show up, maybe not ideal to the customer journey. But I think now we're at a point where it is about answering questions, providing value, providing great content. And now there are tools to help us sort of see where we might show up outside of our traditional ability to track keywords in the standard way.
I like the evolution of that, right? I think, uh, and it's funny. I there's one topic I never have anyone on the show that talks about SEO because I just can't stand it. And I will say there's only maybe a handful of people. I have talked to some people about it, but handful of people I trust to talk about SEO because there's a lot of other folks that give it a bad name, and so it's like that topic is forbidden on here. But the idea of just you know, over time, when Google got better and better and better, I felt like that too. You just make good content, just try to help people out and get it shared, encourage a little social sharing, but
Right.
otherwise just do the right thing. And then, and you'll see that get picked up and carried off with it. So I wonder if AI will get to that point too, where we can just focus on just making good content and being helpful. And if we, maybe at some point the intelligence goes, these guys are actually really helpful. Let's promote them more than somebody else.
Right. Right. And I think all the things that you do as you think about brand, because I do think brand is, sort of
Yes.
the the other piece of this where you say, okay, if I'm not focusing so much on direct attribution, it kind of opens up the doors for brand. I'm a big believer in brand and demand, not brand versus demand. And we all know measuring brand is notoriously difficult. And so if you sort of take some of the requirements off your investments and say, I know investing in brand is going to help out overall. It's going to raise our profile. It'll help in terms of showing up in places where you're not maybe tracking clicks. I think that this is something that is also an unlock, and certainly the more you think about your brand showing up off of your own website, that's going to bring in people as well. They'll discover you before they've even heard of your brand because an influencer is talking about you. You're showing up at an event, which is a thought leadership event that this person cares about that particular topic.
Can you track demand? I know we were kind of joking a little bit about it. What stat would you want to see from your team that would say brand is working?
You know, I think there's sort of your typical share of voice. So are we showing up in conversations? One of the things that I'm talking to my team about right now is, can we do anything really targeted in a small market and invest in things that we don't typically do in a larger market or globally, and start to measure overall impact on the business there? Are we actually seeing more traffic come to the website from that particular, whether it's country or a smaller geographic outline? Are we seeing that sales teams are having, better conversations because people have heard of the brand? I will say I have never had a conversation with a sales leader who doesn't also want brand awareness. They want demand, they want leads, but they also want, when they pick up the phone, for somebody to say, oh yes, I know who you are. I saw this or I read this. So I think that investment in brand is key. And it kind of goes along with this, attribution myth of everything you do has to be measured because every dollar you spend has to be able to be trackable.
Yeah, you know what? It's cool that you bring that up about sales. as much as they want those leads. I remember being a young marketer and just like being a fly on the wall and joining a sales call. And the first thing the prospect said on the call was, "Who are you again? And what do you do?" Right. And I was thinking, oh no, this is a cold call. This is not qualified whatsoever. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, they would love to have that person get on the call. Oh, you guys? Yeah, I know all about you. Yeah, it's kind of exciting that we're chatting about this. I wonder if I can even afford you, you know? I'm sure they'd much rather have that conversation than explaining why you've never heard of us, but don't worry, we're really good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, yet everyone tends to focus on everything else. So it sounds like the micro communities, it sounds like, super targeted areas can, yeah, anecdotally, but then ideally down the line, we start seeing more exposure in these areas. It's just really hard to track, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And that's, I'm trying to think of some of these investments as also almost an A/B test to say, right, if we don't do these things, how do we do them in a really targeted way? How can we measure the impact? And then that is sort of the proof point that we need to say, let's try it out in more areas. Not saying every, specific audience or geography is going to react the same way to different tactics, but that's also the fun of global marketing as you think about, it's not a cookie cutter approach. You've got to figure out what each audience wants, what their care abouts are, what resonates with them.
It totally makes sense. And you can get to that conversation to your point about all that research is happening beforehand, right? Like I know, I know Wrike, I know the brand, I've been a customer, I know it. I'm not sure why I know it, but I do, right? And maybe your team knows, maybe they're not even sure how why, but I do. And so if I'm researching, that name is on the list just from personal experience, and maybe from a podcast like this. Uh, but yeah, like so much research happening beforehand, you may not even get the at bat to for sales to pitch or this or that if the name doesn't even come up. I'm sure there's some other great tools out there that no one's ever heard of, but no one's ever heard of you, and you aren't going to just magically be compared in a process.
Exactly.
Curious. Obviously, you know a lot of things, and you've worked at a lot of companies. Where do you like to get your knowledge from? Are you reading some books lately? Podcasts? Where do you like to get your input?
So, I'd say my outside of sort of general, there are certain news sites I take a look at, newsletters, marketing brew, B2B profs, very focused marketing areas. But I also like to kind of broaden it and take a look at overall go to market because marketing, sales, CS, and product all make up this go to market strategy. And I want to make sure I'm understanding and staying on top of overall trends. So, member of the Pavilion Group, have been a member of theirs from years, and it's a great way to kind of stay connected to a variety of leaders. And I also find outside of podcasts, newsletters, those communities are great ways to stay connected. It is, beyond I can, sort of read the Slack posts. I can search for certain topics. I can listen to webinars that are being held. But you also get a chance to meet peers and connect with peers, whether it's in person or virtual, who are seeing the same issues that you are. They have tried to address it in different ways. And so it's a great way to kind of get that real-time feedback. Oftentimes when you are a CMO ahead of a function, you don't have a peer to bounce ideas off of like you might earlier in your career where you could say, all right, guys, what's going on here? Let's brainstorm. You want to have those executive peers that you can chat with to say, I'm seeing this. Are you also seeing this? Is it just me or is it actually a trend that's out there that I haven't read about yet?
Right. Yeah, I definitely have seen community just really take over by storm, and I'm wondering if it's a post-COVID thing or where it comes from, but man, yeah, it's just so helpful, but I think it used to be in the realm of, like, just the CEOs, but now I'm seeing executive leaders in all different departments coming together, and you're right, even more than a webinar, it's, like, not a webinar. It's,
Exactly.
us sharing our experiences with each other. I was on a group like you're describing, with a bunch of other heads of marketing, and one person was sharing that they just got venture funding. Another person was sharing they're probably going to be leaving their org, and it's just, but it's like real talk as opposed to maybe real content in the future, but not recorded. It not turned into something in a funnel. Yeah, I'm not even sure. Maybe it's lightly trackable, but just a really good experience that doesn't have all the trappings of a normal, funnel process. Not that it even has to be associated with a funnel, but but like who runs community and what's their purpose and why?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there are some communities that I'm part of that are sponsored by vendors,
Mhm.
but they do a great job at keeping it a non-selling environment. It is their opportunity to build awareness, build community. I mean, honestly, they learn something too. If I'm their target audience, what we're talking about is helping them sort of say, oh, this is a trend. Are we actually talking about this trend in our own marketing? Are we thinking about it from a product perspective? If these 5 people have this problem, is this a problem that everybody's going to soon see, and we need to think about it? So I think there's a give and a get. They bring these groups of people together. I benefit, they benefit, but they keep it a very strict no selling type of environment. So you don't feel like, oh, I'm at somebody's marketing event.
Yeah, I launched it makes a lot of sense to protect your community from vendors, but also from it's interesting. I launched a community with a my community wizard friend, Paul Jones, and I was like, "Hey, cool, we have this new community we're launching." And I was like, "I just want to invite all my friends." He goes, "Well, hold on. Like, do your friends all fit this category? And if not, they can still be your friends. You can still meet up at the next,
Right.
EDBMX event, but maybe let's not invite them to this." And so a lot of we had to really protect it to make sure not only no vendors there, but also everyone is similar so that if somebody shared an experience, it's a like-minded experience, not, out of left field for someone.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's coming around the bend? Where do you see things going? And really my question is, what's exciting you about the future?
Mm. Uh, I'm going to give you probably what's a boring answer is AI and what AI is going to do for business, for marketing. I mean, I think it is so much opportunity that we haven't uncovered, and there's a ton of research on it. I feel like every other email I get is telling me about either a new AI tool or inviting me to a new webinar that's talking about AI.
Right.
And I think for me, it's both on sort of the technology side of things. One of the things I love about marketing is there's this balance of creativity, numbers and analysis, and technology, and thinking about how technology enables marketing. But I think it's also on the the process side of things and the efficiency side of things. So how can we use this to do great marketing, do better marketing? How can we use this to focus on the things that matter versus routine tasks, things that I'm doing over and over again are using up, my time that I could be brainstorming or be creative. So I think that's super exciting. Now, I feel like we're at this pivotal point where we had early experimentation with, early versions and people saw so results. Now there's a ton of investment. And the trick is going to be, how do you focus on the technologies, the vendors that are actually going to drive impact and be here for the long term. But one of the things I definitely focus on with my teams is, think of AI as a way to let you focus on the things that only a human can do. AI you can use to outsource things, but think about how you would spend your time if you didn't have to do some of these things that AI can automate. And I think that is a way to get people to embrace it more. There's certainly some people may have fear. My job's going to get outsourced to AI. But I think it's a tool, just like any other technology that pops up, and you just need to figure out how it makes you better or more efficient at your job.
I definitely, yeah, the idea of the augmentation, I definitely have been seeing it helping me, get better at my job and the different things that I'm doing. Yeah, I had to pause too because when you brought that up, I thought Isn't it great that it's real this time? Because I feel like there are a lot of companies selling that they did AI, and it was like, okay, but now it is. Like, so something happened, a little flip of the switch, and now it really is this different thing. And so, maybe a lot of us just didn't take it seriously because there was so much fluff around, hey, AI and the software. But now, no, for real, now it's like, no, it's real this time, guys. It's real. Um, are there any particular areas that you've seen it even help you in your work, or that you've enjoyed using it?
I would say for me, it helps with, I would say, consolidating research, consolidating data. We've got an AI portal that we use internally. And whereas I might have in the past had to go to separate tools to say, all right, let me hear the sales calls. All right, let me see where this word is showing up in responses to emails. It's all consolidated, and I'm able to sort of say, all right, what are people saying about this topic? Or we're focused on this ICP. How many conversations are we have, and what are the trending themes that we're seeing in there? So I use it as a way to consolidate all this data proprietary data that we've captured internally, whereas I would have had to do a ton of research and go into all these different places, all in one place now. And I can kind of pull it out across different surfaces where we're engaging with customers and prospects.
Man, kinda like the iPhone, I feel like we just take that for granted already. Like, you're right, you would have to listen to so many calls, and you would have or look through so many transcripts to say, "Oh, hey, I'm see," or have someone on your team do it, like, and
Exactly.
hopefully they find the right keywords like, "Oh, we're seeing this trend happening," but to just be able to unleash all that data, I've certainly enjoyed throwing a P&L into AI and say, what have I missed here? What have I missed? Um, Absolutely, boiling it all down. Yeah, my next question really is like, Christine, who are you? How do you know all these things? Take me back in time to, like, little Christine days. Did you know you're gonna be a marketing leader to all these big brands, these well-known brands? What was it like?
So I didn't know I was going to end up in marketing, but I always knew I wanted to work in international business. Uh,
Okay.
when I was growing up, my dad would travel to all these countries, and he came back with these amazing stories about the people he met, the things he saw, the food he ate. And I thought, I want a job like that. How can that, be part of my career? And so, I started studying foreign languages early. At undergrad, I was an Asian studies major. And you might ask, what does that entail? And it was actually a combination of coursework across language, literature, history, politics. And then I took as much business coursework as I could when I was at University of Virginia. So kind of combining this liberal arts focus on other countries with the business basics. And then when I went to get my MBA, I only focused on international programs. I wanted language immersion. I wanted to work outside the US. I really wanted that experience. And I was able to get that when I was at University of South Carolina. And really from there, all of my career has been very focused on global, thinking about how do you enter new markets? How do you market to a variety of audiences? And if you think about my early career was big companies. So, I spent time at Cisco. I learned
Yeah.
what does great look like? How do you operate at scale? How do you influence across functions, collaborating across, different teams? So it was definitely a great foundational experience. And I think it kind of set me up for moving to smaller companies, which when I moved to Salesforce at the time, it was smaller. It is certainly a behemoth now, but and I know we've got some shared history from
We
Salesforce.
do, yeah.
And absolutely, they're masters at marketing. I feel like I learned so much about uh, the marketing industry and how to think about all these different ways to be super agile, super creative, very much, industry leading in terms of how they were thinking about marketing. It was also the first place where I marketed to marketers.
Yeah.
When I moved over to their marketing cloud business, which is fascinating and something that that I love to do because we are our own worst critics. And I know when I market to a marketer, every single detail matters. They're going to tear down that email. They're going to think about how they could have created that
So
landing page
true.
better. They're going to say, I wouldn't have run the event this way. But I think it keeps you, on top of your game. It's also fun to kind of think about, well, how would I react to that message? Does that actually resonate with me?
I feel like you also get there's this unspoken uplift you get marketing to marketers, which is when I see really good marketing, I'm clicking through just because almost like out of respect. I'm like, oh, this is good. I want to, but maybe I'm not even a good click because I would have normally bounced. But I'm like, no, I need to see this landing page. I want to see what their follow up is like. But
Yes. Yeah.
when we see good marketing, we definitely follow through with it. But you're right, the judgment of, oh, I wouldn't have sent it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Man. And so now with the team, Wrike, how are things going? What are you excited about what you're up to these days?
Yes. Yes. So, our company has been around for a long time. And we've been evolving as collaborative work management has been evolving. And as I think about the difference from when I joined just a year ago, the company's evolved, the marketing team has evolved. Certainly we are laser focused on certain ICPs. So when the team is thinking about campaigns they're running, sales enablement, we're looking at who is our best audience to go after. Because we're a horizontal solution, we could sell to anyone, anywhere, but we
Yes.
want to make sure we're focusing our efforts on the places where we provide the most value, where we have the biggest right to win. We have also gone from single product to multi-product. So made our first acquisition earlier this year of Klaxoon, a visual collaboration
Wow.
tool. And so that has been fun in terms of thinking about, all right, this is a big shift for the whole company. How are we going to think about integration of the company itself? But now, how do we expand out and say we've got a bigger portfolio? What is that broader value proposition? How do we make sure the sales teams are enabled with all the right messaging to have conversations at a broader scale now? So it has been, definitely a year of change. But it's been fun. It's great to be with, as you mentioned, it's a brand that people have heard of. And we're focused on making sure that we are evolving that brand as we think about expanding the scope of what we do. Certainly we try to weave AI into not just our marketing, but also product. And so it's been fun to see, right, how do we weave AI in the product and help people be more efficient and focus on the most important parts of their workflows. So it's great to be able to see how my team uses it, how my team uses it within the Wrike product for their own workflows, and then how our customers are responding to it and what they want to see out of the tool.
So cool to be able to use it yourself and get the benefit from it. I will have to say, like, you've already talked me into, we'll have to have you come back because the idea of when you're a product that everyone can buy, oh my gosh, and how do you not just, and your product can help people, how do you not just want everyone to be on it?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And I've seen it at a couple of places. Dropbox was similar, where it
Yes,
is absolutely anybody could use it for anything.
right.
But how do you kind of craft and focus and, go from we could do anything to let's focus on these three things and, and make sure that we're successful there before we expand out.
Well, we'll have to have you come back because I feel like I could talk to you for a couple days on that topic. And it usually comes from a good place where you just really want to help everyone, but you're like, we need to focus
Right. Right.
on that. Well, my next question for you is a bit of a hypothetical question, if you're ready for this.
Okay. Yes.
Well, you see, I may or may not have a time machine over here in New Hampshire. So So next time you come to an event in Boston, we'll just drive north, come visit. It's in the backyard covered in a tarp. And so we use this time machine. But it's a particular kind of time machine where you get to go back in time and meet yourself 4 days after getting that Asian studies degree. And you get to chat with yourself. What kind of things would you tell yourself? What kind of things would you share?
Uh, let's see. First of all, take time off between graduation and your first job. Absolutely. If you can schedule that trip, schedule to see family that you haven't seen in a while, because once you're in that first job, it is going to be all consuming, and it's hard to focus when you have a job and take a vacation. You're always thinking about work.
Always.
So that would be number one. And number two, as you're thinking about, if you're at the point where you're still deciding what job to take, or what your next step is, because maybe it is starting your own business, maybe it's going back to school for another degree. Think about something that is appealing to both your rational side and your your gut. Um, I'm a person who likes to make pros and cons lists and add up and give everything a different value. But in the end, I take a look at it and say, if I make the decision that this list is telling me to, how do I actually feel? Am I excited? Am I happy? Am I wishing that the numbers had turned out a different way? And so I think you do have to be able to think about both sides of it, because um, while I don't think work has to be your passion, I think you have to love going into work every day. You spend too much time with the people you're meeting in the interview process or the day-to-day work to feel like it's not something that you're learning, you enjoy it, you're great at it. So I do think that is something that I would have told myself.
Love the advice. I wonder how many people listening, probably every single one of us can, not everyone does the pro con list, but I think they're great and more people should do them. But then after you write that out, you're like, yeah, I'm just going to pick this one. It's like the old eeny, meeny, miny, mo game. And we, not pick and this one, right? And then we go to the one that we just really wanted for some deep set reason. So I love that you're saying, be rational, but also allow for that wiggle room of what really motivates and drives you. So cool. Do you think you would have listened to yourself?
I did not listen. I wouldn't. I actually didn't listen to myself because I made a career decision coming out, which was the right thing to do, was the safe thing to do. And I got in it and I was not happy. And it was clear to everybody around me that I was not happy. Luckily, I was able to make a quick pivot
Mm,
and, go to something that I did love. And I had a long career at that company. So I was able to make that change, but I didn't follow my advice. So I wish someone had been there too.
right? Like, I'm not listening to you, lady.
Exactly.
Oh man. Well, hey, if people want to connect with you, reach out, how do they get in touch? What's the best place to go to connect with you and also Wrike and all that?
Sure. I would say, for me, LinkedIn, definitely I'm on there and active, try to share interesting tidbits with people. Similar for Wrike, either taking a look at our social profiles or Wrike.com to come in and kind of look at what we've got there. We're trying to make sure that we're sharing interesting information. We're sort of sharing some points of view from our leadership team on where they're seeing the future of work going, where they're seeing collaboration going. So certainly look forward to connecting with people as they get a chance to listen to this.
And as you connect, don't be a weirdo. Definitely say where your source was. We talked a little bit about attribution tonight. So
I will ask people, how did you
yeah.
hear about me?
How did you hear about me? I was on the podcast, right? So yeah, definitely do that. But man, Christine, thank you so much for coming on here and just sharing this wealth of knowledge from your background at companies big and small, and the talk of the journey and the zero click research. And man, I feel like it's been a master class, and I'm so thankful.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know, feel like time just warped by. And so for those listening, if it warped by for you too and you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, then share this with someone. 1 person, 3 people, 9,000 is cool too, but even 1 person, like, who needs to hear this? Do you have a fellow marketer that is over indexing on attribution? They're going a little attribution crazy. Get some sense into them. Have them listen to this episode. Hey, tag us all on social. We'll hop in there. We'll go to battle for you to get that barn door to swing the other direction. And with that, Christine, thank you again.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy cool, very exciting episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.